scientist at the Jackson Laboratory, and with me is my colleague Sarah.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah. I'm speaking to you from my favorite room in the house. We are, as Laura said, we're technical information scientists, or TIS, and our job is really to serve the research community by answering all mouse-related questions. We have formal webinars on Thursdays. You may have heard our voices before or seen our photos. There I am on the left and my colleague Dr. Dolores on the right. Or you may have called us or contacted us either via phone or email. We've tried to support you in your research needs. Today we've got sort of a new thing that we're trying. It's our MiceTech Talk. It's a weekly 15-minute podcast webinar where we try and answer frequently asked mouse questions. We're trying to do this as a way to build community amongst our fellow scientists that are all sheltering at home.
Great. Please keep in mind that in order to communicate with us, what you can use is the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. You can enter your questions that we will be very happy to answer. Any questions that we don't have time to discuss, you can email micetech@jax.org, and ourselves or one of our colleagues in our tech support scientist team can answer that as well. So I was thinking, Sarah, that maybe we can pull up the first poll question just for to have people practice taking polls.
Yeah.
And we're interested in hearing back from you and making this something fun and more participative.
Absolutely. So you're going to see on in your little panel on your right-hand side, the poll question I just opened up. Select all that may apply, and then just hit submit. So that way the question comes to us. And this is a funny question or a less serious question, maybe serious for some. I know that my answer is I actually got a haircut a couple months ago, and I only cut my hair once a year, so I'm good for a while. I'm actually pretty good.
Yeah, I did a homemade haircut on Saturday, so here we go.
Nice.
Don't look at the back side, but the front is not bad.
You look good. You look good. All right, we're going
to
give
close
you
that poll question and see what people answered. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, give me a moment. Just gotta. You see the results on your screen now, Dolores? Oh wait, hold on. I gotta do this. Here we go.
Oh, I do. Oh gosh, people cannot remember.
Well, no worries, no worries.
These are strange times we're living. So if you can go ahead, Sarah, and pull up the other question, which is more related to our today's topic on how to build cohorts for people that are eager to come back to work and get their ideal size cohorts to see what people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, so give us a sense of what you expect. What's your ideal if you could pick the best number of mice that you would use for your experimental design coming up. That'll give us a sense of what you're looking for and helps us think about how do we discuss cohorts and what would serve your needs best as you're working towards your future goals coming up. So again, just make sure you hit as many as apply and submit at the bottom. I'm just going to give a few more seconds. And I can see that we're getting close to just about half of our folks have answered. So give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to close that poll here. Thank you, everyone. All right, and here we go. So great.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So we got a lot of people who are looking at that 10 to 20 range, but we do have some people who are looking for those larger sizes, 20 to 50 or 50 to 100. Even it looks like, well, no one yet who wants over 100, but still some of those larger cohort sizes. So larger cohort sizes can prove a challenge, particularly when you're working from a smaller colony that you may have downsized your colony, or you may be working from cryopreserved material. And if you attended our MiceTech talk last week, you talked about cryopreservation, but now we're talking about the next step. So when you're looking at smaller sizes, less than 10 mice, and if you have an existing colony, you can use traditional breeding typically to get age-matched controls. But once you start getting above that 20 mouse range, then getting those age-matched controls, especially from a small colony or from cryopreserved material, can prove challenging. You may need to do multiple rounds of expansion breeding to get the number of breeders you need to generate your cohort sizes. So traditional breeding may not support your research needs as much as some other methods. So Dolores, do you want to talk about some of the non-traditional methods?
So especially when you're looking for age-matched controls, which most people that call us, that's what they want. One thing before getting into how to get large cohorts fast, which is the main point of today's talk, just let me refresh a little bit. As people are home and getting half speed and eager to get to full speed research here, there are some critical things that people need to be thinking about, and that is, what is the size of the cohort that you need, and what kind of colony do you actually need? For example, do you need to generate the controls in the same colony? Are you going to use another colony for that? Those are the kind of questions. What are the genotypes of the cohorts that you need? Those are things that we don't have much time to expand today, but it needs to be at the forefront of you planning the sizes of your cohorts, obviously. So when we're talking about you need, let's say, 20, 25 or more age-matched animals, really the fastest way to get there is if you have a frozen stock or if a repository has a frozen stock, is to do IVF, to do in vitro fertilization, it could be a small scale in vitro fertilization if it's a cohort of 20, or it could be a large scale in vitro fertilization if you need hundreds of mice. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues in breeding services, and to have sort of a comparison on how the timing, So let's say I had a caller last week from a biotech in the East Coast, and they were asking, they wanted to cryo-recover one of the strains that we have as frozen sperm. It's a transgenic model. It's not important what the model was. The point is that the experimental model is hemizygous, which is similar to heterozygous. And for them to get 20 cohorts of 24 mice of different genotypes, so the transgenic versus the wild type from the same colony, it will take, if we rush this, approximately 2 months doing IVF. Now, the same cohorts, it will take 8 months, 6 to 8 months to get by traditional breeding. So that's kind of what people have to balance. But the good news is that if you need a fast cohort, there's creative ways based on reproductive sciences to do it. Mainly, you need a team that is fluent and has experience doing IVF and sperm collection, in vitro fertilization, and embryo transfer, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I would say that having the experience, but also what are some of the things that you need? So like when you do IVF, so you need frozen material, what kinds of frozen material can you start from?
Right, exactly. So for in vitro fertilization, by definition, it's using sperm from a male. Could be a heterozygous male, it could be homozygous male, depending on the model. And then you use eggs from a female, and depending on what you're trying to make and what the genotype that you're trying to make, you can use eggs from an inbred female, such as C57 Black 6J, if that's the background, or you can use a female from the same model as well. That's something that you can do. So in a dish, you do, like in humans, you do, you put the sperm and the eggs together. You wait for embryos to form. Typically 2-cell embryos is what we store. And then from there, you can either freeze the embryos for a later use, or you can use some of those to do what we call embryo transfer to pseudopregnant females. And then from there, you wait, the 3-ish weeks of gestation, and then the pups are born. Typically, depending on the strain and all, you get like 6 to 10 pups per cryo recovery, and then you can move on from there. And then depending on what's the goal, you would do 1, 2, 10, etc.
How many
transfers in order to get the number of pups that you actually need.
So going back to our poll question, we got an interesting question from Q&A asking, would we recommend IVF for getting a cohort of 10 to 20 mice? And I think that the answer really is kind of what you're starting with. So if you're starting from a cryopreserved material, you're going to be using IVF anyways, so you can do more, as you said, in order to get that 10 to 20. If you're starting from a breeding pair, what would you recommend? What's your thoughts on for that smaller cohort size? Do you still think?
I think it really depends. If you want them age matched, the question really doesn't touch on that. But I mean, typically people want them sort of age matched. Typically, when they talk about a cohort, it's kind of it's implied. You know, it really depends on the budget that you have and the capabilities of your core facilities. Like if your core facilities are experienced doing this, then sure. If they are not, then go with someone. I mean, the Jackson Laboratory has a huge history of not only promoting but making groundbreaking advances in cryopreservation and cryorecovery. So that obviously is something that is at the service for the research community. We actually were doing a lot of cryopreservations, as the previous talk with Janine and Caitlin discussed. We're doing tons of cryopreservations, and we're starting to do cryorecoveries as well. So really, it's a balance between the budget that you have, the time for when you need them, and the capabilities of your own teams, or, you know, if you're going to outsource, then, you know, obviously that's an option as well.
And one thing I kind of want to bring up is just the concept of right now is a really good time to consider these questions and to prepare. So if it's something where you do want to do an IVF process, thinking about now, as Dolores mentioned, you know, the genotypes you need and your time frame of when can you receive mice and when do you want to get started. Thinking about now is always a good time to just get yourself prepared. So that way when you're ready to make a decision, you have all the information you need to make the decision that best supports your research.
And I wanted to touch on that a little bit, Sarah. And it's like the calculations is like, in theory, you could get, you know, from frozen sperm to a cohort of hundreds of mice in as short as in 2 months, like I said before. But this is if you're first in line in your repository. If your project is the only project that facility is going to do, or if you're first in line, let's say at JAX, cryorecoveries, then for sure. But there's always, you need to buffer that time with where your project is in relation to others. I just wanted to make that clarification.
And I got a question, kind of two similar questions, which is looking at that 10 to 20 mouse range again. What would, you know, the time to get a cohort of that size with regular breeding? And I think the answer to that, in my mind, relies on two things. One is what you're starting with, and that's really what it comes down to, is what do you have to start with? If you have a breeding pair, do you have 2 breeding pairs? Even 3 breeding pairs over 2 could be a substantial enough colony that gets you started quickly. But if you only have 1 breeding pair, it could potentially take you longer. And then the second question is also, how are you breeding the mice to get your cohort? So if you're breeding a homozygous by homozygous colony and all of your offspring are kind of usable as your cohort, that's going to be faster than if you are breeding a heterozygous by heterozygous and your experimental genotype is homozygous, because then you're looking at only 25% of your mice are going to be your experimental cohort. So you might need to do, again, a round of expansion breeding, or even 2, depending on how many breeders you really need. And at this point, I actually do want to plug a little bit. We got only 1 minute left. I want to plug a real quick note for, we do have these formal Thursday webinars. And the next one this Thursday is a webinar on guidelines for sizing your experimental colonies. And so if you have questions about traditional breeding methods of sizing your colonies, that's a really good one. But we gotta wrap it up. So Dolores, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, sure. If you want a follow-up on this topic on how to build cohorts fast, we are going to be on Twitter and on a live LinkedIn session tomorrow. So go to LinkedIn and of the Jackson Laboratory. You can find that as well. And then we look forward to seeing you again on our next episode, number 3, Let's Talk New Colonies, next week at the same time.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Keep safe and go along with your research. Looking forward to seeing you next time.